One second. Okay. Hi, Texas and Rai Rai. This is a live stream on my phone. So I thought it was just scheduling it on my phone, but I have to do it on my phone. So it's going to have to be vertical, I guess. I don't know. Orientation is locked. So, okay. So, anyways, hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Whole Truth. I'm Gillar Bell, attorney at law. For those of you that are new here or watching in the future, just a reminder, I've been practicing law in California for about 11 to 12 years, including criminal defense and civil litigation. I've also worked on the prosecution side. And as everyone that's been watching me knows, I've been covering the Tyler Robinson case very closely. Um, and it's an important case, not just because it involved Charlie Kirk, one of the great figures of our time, great public figures, but also because of all the conspiracy nonsense that's been going on. And that stuff's just really bothering me. Felt the need to counter it, just using logic, reason, common sense, and then a little bit of my legal background to back it up. So, you know, I do encourage skepticism. I'm not against people asking questions. Anybody that is asking questions, I think that's healthy. I think that's what a healthy democracy should do. And people on the jury should be skeptical and make the prosecution meet their burden of proof. And that's exactly what the defense is supposed to do. They're supposed to argue inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, any leads that were not chased down perfectly. That's what the defense should be doing. What I'm pushing back against more is the people that just reject every piece of evidence simply because it doesn't fit with their preferred narrative, whether their preferred narrative is Tyler Robinson is guilty or their preferred narrative is that Tyler Robinson is innocent. You have to assess the evidence that is presented and use logic and reason. And yes, I do believe that the evidence against Tyler Robinson is overwhelming, just based on what we saw at the preliminary hearing. Okay, it's more than I've seen in most cases. And as a defense lawyer, if I'm facing up against that, I'm worried. Okay, and to me, the text messages just, really prosecutions don't get so lucky usually as to have somebody can admit or confess to their crime multiple times over text messages. And as I've said many times, if you think you're deleting text messages, you're not. If you're going to have to confess to a crime, pick up the phone and call. Okay, because the text messages are forever. Phone calls, somebody would actually have to be listening in. So, Tyler Robinson, not smart. But uh, today, this specific podcast or this live, I want to specifically focus on what I keep encountering when I'm debating the conspirators. And, there's different levels of them. There are those that are, I think, operating in good faith. They're just skeptical. They're not, I think that they're probably just not paying that close attention to the facts and the evidence. And so, they're getting bits and pieces, and then, they're getting regurgitated Candace Owens slop. And so, there are those that I think are operating from good faith, but then there's those that are just diametrically opposed to any evidence whatsoever that Tyler Robinson did the crime. Um, so the most common question I get is, what if Tyler Robinson was framed? Is that something that you could present as a defense lawyer? And the answer is yes. It's not something that you encounter in most cases, particularly a frame up that involves so many different organizations and entities and people. But there have been some cases of cops and law enforcement planting evidence, um, forcing confessions, not disclosing evidence that exculpates, the um, the defendant or person in custody, and convictions have been overturned because of it. So it's something that is not outside of the realm of possibility. However, the distinction here between those cases, and I'm thinking of like the Rampart scandal, which I'm not familiar with off the top of my head all the details, but that was a big scandal, I think, in the LAPD, which involved a lot of planting of drugs by law enforcement, a lot of evidence being withheld from defense lawyers, and a lot of convictions being overturned. But the difference between that situation and this one is that there was evidence of the framing. Okay. And that's the key distinction. The defense is allowed to argue alternative theories based on evidence. They're not just allowed to just bring up an alternative theory that client is framed without offering any evidence. The court is not going to let them argue that. So they have to bring up evidence of misconduct. Now, the defense is always allowed to argue that the prosecution failed to meet their burden of proof, right? That's what a defense lawyer is supposed to do. But if you're going to bring up an affirmative defense, such as my client was framed, then you have to provide some evidence. And so far, we haven't seen any evidence of that. So, sorry, my dog is clawing at the door. I'll be right back. This is a problem with the home office. I have a dog, a baby, 7-year-old, and my wife. So, yeah. Um, Hi, Nikki. Hi, Megan. Hi, S Files. Hi, Jim Williams. Hi, Larry Pilgrim. You seem new. Please hit subscribe, like, share, subscribe, comment. So it's different to argue that the prosecution has failed to meet their burden of proof than it is to argue that there's a frame up. Okay. One is like an affirmative defense, which you have to present evidence for. You can't just abstractly say it's theoretically possible, because anything is theoretically possible, right? Is it theoretically possible that all of the text messages that Tyler Robinson sent to Lance Twiggs, in which he's confessing, is it theoretically possible that those were all forged? Yeah, that's theoretically possible, but without providing some evidence, the judge is not going to let you just let the defense argue that. So they have to provide some evidence. One of the options, and I doubt that the defense is actually going to do this, but testimony counts as evidence. So if they wanted to, they could put Tyler Robinson on the stand. I haven't even heard anything from him saying that he's been framed. This is just something that other people are saying on his behalf. But if he wants to argue that, he cannot be compelled to testify in a case against himself. But he is allowed to testify, and he could say that he's being framed. He has an alibi. Another thing that I haven't heard any evidence for, which you would expect somebody that lives 3.5 hours away to have an alibi, but we haven't heard anything. Now, the fact that he doesn't choose to testify against himself, also that cannot be used against him. But my point is that if the defense wants to offer some evidence of a frame up, he is allowed to go and take the stand and say that. I don't think he's going to, because I'll open him up to cross-examination. And my guess is these are seasoned prosecutors that know how to cross-examine people, and the defense doesn't want to put him up there and get him caught in any lies or contradictions, because that'll just hurt their case even more. So, yeah. So if the defense has an expert, so let's look at some of the specific conspiracies, or not conspiracies, but specific points that I've brought up. Jim, sorry if I'm not answering your questions. I'm doing this live on my phone, so I have to like I can't see everything that's scrolling. Jim, can he plead insanity? Yeah, he can. I don't think it's gonna work, but I was thinking about that. If I'm his defense lawyers, maybe that's a route that I would think about. But I don't think he has any history of mental illness that would corroborate that. And he did a lot of planning. His actions afterwards are not consistent. Insanity defense is much more for somebody who's like delusional and thinks that they're um Batman or something, and that they're saving Gotham City by killing the Joker, and somebody that crazy. It's not meant for somebody that's like, you know, just has some mental issues, because every murderer by definition almost has is not mentally um all there, right? So it really has to be like a hallucination or delusional state in order to really get away with an insanity defense. I think the best thing that the defense can do, if I'm Tyler Robinson's defense lawyers, I'm going around his community and his friends and neighbors and coworkers and getting declarations and affidavits that say that he's a good person, that he just did something bad. I mean, obviously it's very bad, but point is that all these mitigating circumstances, he should be spared the death penalty. He has an opportunity for remorse, and he should serve life without, he should serve life in prison. The prosecution would want it to be life in prison without possibility of parole. The defense might argue, 25 years to life with possibility of parole. But that would be, kind of my strategy is mitigating circumstances here because the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, I don't know why people keep brushing aside the text messages. He says he did it in text messages, and they might be able to argue, oh, this was one text message. Maybe somebody swiped his phone and you know for some reason text I did it, but this was over the course of 24 to 48 hours, him describing how he did it, saying he planned it, saying, he dropped off the gun, saying that he's going to surrender through a sheriff's deputy friend. I mean, how do people brush it off? Maybe somebody can. So the only way is to say that sorry, one second. That these were all forged, right, by the government, somebody with technology. But they pulled these text messages from Lance's phone and from Tyler's phone. They extracted it digitally from Tyler's phone, and they looked at Lance's phone and they took photographs of all the text messages, and they of course corresponded perfectly. So is it theoretically possible that some technologically advanced agency was able to hack Tyler Robinson's phone in order to send text messages to Lance Twig's phone that also corresponded with what Tyler was actually doing on the ground, and where his location was and his DNA. I mean, yeah, it's theoretically possible, but courtrooms do not deal with what is theoretically possible in the abstract. You have to have some evidence. And so the defense is not going to be arguing these conspiracies because there's no evidence for them. They're going to be arguing that the prosecution doesn't meet their burden of proof. That's a very hard thing for them to be arguing, but that is what else are they going to do? They have to try, right? They're not going to be like, "Yeah, you got us," or "My client did it." So they're going to argue that the prosecution made some mistakes. There's some inconsistencies. DNA evidence is not 100% foolproof, but they're not going to argue this massive conspiracy without some sort of evidence. They're also not going to argue that he was MK Ultra, which was one of the questions I was asked. And I tried to be respectful. I tried to say, you know, okay, if he was under mind control, yeah, that would be a defense, but you have to bring in an expert psychiatrist that would testify to that. You can't just bring it up. That's not how courtrooms work. The other question that I was asked, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, was, why was the DNA degraded? Actually, I covered this pretty much yesterday, so I don't want to be repetitive. But yeah, it's a big uphill battle for the defense. In my cases, I'll admit I haven't done a whole lot of murder cases. I haven't done anything this high profile, but I have done a bunch of cases. I've done some murder cases on the prosecution side, not as a defense lawyer, but like I've done assault with deadly weapon cases. I've done extortion defense, and in my for the ADW case that I was able to get my client acquitted, we argued defense, self defense, and defense of another person. That's an affirmative defense that you can argue and would sometimes work in a homicide. It's not available in this case. There's no self defense available. Insanity defense, I mean at least within the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's going to work because of the fact that he's not insane basically. Um, you can you can argue like if he was intoxicated that maybe he had less control of himself, that would maybe lower it from a first degree or capital offense to a heat of passion second degree murder. I don't think that that's an available option either. So really, in terms of an affirmative defense, you could say frame up if there was some evidence of it. I haven't seen any evidence that he was framed. Zero. Not even. I've seen some like completely ancillary, irrelevant, trivial details that Charlie Kirk was turning against Israel. That's like the closest thing that I've ever seen to actual evidence that he was, Tyler Robinson was framed. But that doesn't that's so stupid that it's not gonna be admitted in court. Um, and then the alibi, which if he had one, I think they would have presented it at the prelim, but I don't think he has an alibi. Now it's possible that he has an alibi and they just don't want to share it until trial, but I don't think that's the case because I think Tyler Robinson did it. But the only other option is to just say that the prosecution has not met their burden. And again, poking holes, there are like little what I consider kind of trivial details, but that might make a difference with one juror on the jury that gets you a hung jury. They can retry it, but after the first hung jury, they might be more inclined. The prosecution might be more inclined to accept a plea bargain. So that's what I think. I mean, the other thing that the defense is trying to do, and this is from now until trial, is get as much evidence excluded as possible, um, based on any number of factors, chain of custody errors. But I mean, in my experience, that's pretty hard to. I mean, I've dealt with like videos that were so it went through such bad chain of custody against my clients, and I tried to get them excluded because it was just like literally they let the witness handle it and tamper with it and then share it with law enforcement and all this and and even that I couldn't get excluded in my case. Um, that was the ADW case that I ended up winning anyways, so it had a happy ending. But the point is that getting there has to be some strong reason to get evidence excluded. But that's what the defense is trying. Did I watch the Curry Richards trial? No, I really need to start following court cases more closely because everyone always asks me about it, and I I watch news and then American Dad and like other like funny shows like that. So um, I probably should get more on top of these legal cases in the news so I can sound more informed. But what was it? Let me write it down. Corey Richards. And I wanted to do this live on my phone. I mean, not on my phone, on my computer, so I could actually be seeing what. Right now, I'm just seeing kind of a stream because I like interacting with you guys. Um, yeah, but let's you guys. I like reviewing the evidence in this case. I want to. I'm going on Joshua Carr on August 19th, which is pretty cool. Um, so I like. I want to be really kind of familiar with this stuff off the top of my head. Um, so I don't mind going through the evidence, but I don't know if that's getting boring for you because that's pretty much what I do in every single one of my lives. Thank you, Nikki. Um, but yeah, let's go through evidence and let me know if someone else like RD or Paramount or LLC or someone's doing live. I just like to interact with you guys. And if I don't see any of our friends doing a live, then I go ahead and do it. Okay. Was Josh Carr on LLC? I didn't see that one. I'll check that out. Yeah, he seems like just like a genuinely nice dude. I'm gonna have to really watch my mouth around him because he's. Thank you, Texas. Um, he seems kind of like a good gentleman, and I need to work on my language a little bit. But let's open up the Tyler Robinson case. I missed what you said about the Curry Richards trial. No, I somebody asked me if I watched it, and I wrote it down because I did not. I did not. I'm gonna start watching this stuff more closely. Um, my daily life is pretty busy between work and my baby, and childcare is so expensive now. So It's just me and my wife taking care of our daughter and our baby. Um, and then when I do have some time, I just follow the people that you guys follow. So I haven't been following other cases, but I'm gonna make it a priority. Yeah, it saves smile. Yeah, August 19th, I think. August 19th. Yeah, I keep bugging. I've done a show with LLC, one or two. She's awesome. I keep bugging Artie to have me on. Jay Witt, I don't really know his stuff, but if you guys recommend him, then I'm sure he's a cool dude. But yeah, I've been doing these videos kind of actually mostly about politics. Um for about a year. But then I just came on Paramount Tactical one day and I said, "Hey, if you want to have a lawyer discuss the Tyler Robinson case," I think it was the first day of the prelim. And so he was nice enough to let me on, and so I'm like, "Oh, cool. This is a good group of people. I like the crowd. I like all his friends." So I've just been kind of riding that wave for a while. Okay. Yeah, Nick Brooks. I think he said that I didn't hear him say it, but I think he said he he'd be happy to have me on. He seems like another good dude. You could tell who's a good person. Although I don't know, I've been conned before, so but Gary's a good dude for sure. And now he's getting attacked by Tucker and this Elizabeth Lane. I was watching that with Continue Freedom, and I think I would take that as a badge of honor if I was Gary, um, because Tucker is not a good person. I don't really know Elizabeth Lane, but she seems like she's a bad chick. Also, if she's friends with Candace, I'm sorry, anybody that is friends with Candace Owens is got to be a bad person because Candace Owens is just so obviously sick in the head. Um, I've never seen somebody that goes after a grieving widow in the way that she does. It I've never seen it. Okay. So I'm gonna go through the Tyler Robinson case. That's why you left Brett Cooper in the dust. Yeah, I never watched her, but yeah. I mean, and Megan Kelly too. She like threw in her lot with Candace. Um, yeah, and it's just unforgivable. What Candace has done is just unforgivable. Um, mm, let's go through the Tyler case, friends, because I want all of us to be able to, know this. So, I'm gonna post this. I think actually I did post this. I posted this on my Substack, but I'll post a link to my Substack. I don't know if I have it already linked in my like YouTube channel. There's not so much stuff on my Substack, but I did. Yeah, she's Psycho Witch. That's a nice way of saying it. But I did post this PowerPoint that I'm looking at, and let me see if this is actually the final version. Real quick. Yeah. So I did post this, and I think it's a really good overview of everything. So, based on the evidence we have, um, there's eight locations involved in this case. Okay, and they're not really like necessarily. Uh, well, okay. So this page that I'm looking at, we have Tyler's apartment. This was in St. George. This is Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs' apartment. That is about 3.5 hour drive from where the assassination took place. Now, I have not yet heard any connection between Tyler Robinson and UVU, other than the fact that he was there when he did the assassination. But there's been no other connection presented. He's not a student there. He was not a graduate from there. He did not work in the area. He did not have family in the area, at least not that I know of. Maybe there's something there, but I'm saying based on what has been presented, there's no connection between them. So you have Tyler and Lance's apartment. Then you have the UVU campus, which we all know, the significance of. Just north of the UVU campus, right next door, basically, there's a little wooded thicket. That's where the rifle, the towel, and unspent bullets with etchings, which I also find very significant, um, were located. And I think don't quote me on this, but I think including the spent shell casing from the bullet that actually hit Charlie with an etching on it. Then you have Mountain Shadows Shopping Center. Now, the next two or three places I'm going to mention, this is not stuff that came out at the prelim, at least not the part that I was watching, but was mentioned in the search warrant affidavits. And this is going to be, I mean, see, every time you bring this stuff up to the conspirators, they have, they can poke a little hole in a bit of evidence. Like they'll say something like, "Oh, having a Dremel tool and etching bullets, that's not so strange. Lots of kids do really weird stuff like that." And it's like, yeah, but that's not the only piece of evidence. The Dremel tool is just one among 5,000 pieces of evidence. The fact that he had his DNA on a Dremel tool, Lance Twiggs testified that he was using the Dremel tool to etch bullets, and then we found etched bullets or bullets with etchings on it, along with the gun that is consistent with the caliber that killed Charlie Kirk, according to the medical examiner's report, and has Tyler Robinson's DNA all over it, and it was found right near the UVU campus. That's, it's not like we're just talking about the fact that there was a Dremel tool in his apartment. If that was all the evidence that was presented, then yeah, as a defense lawyer, I'd be like, yeah, I could explain that away. But it's like there's more than just having a Dremel tool. Okay. So anyway, so Mountain Shadows Shopping Center. This is where Tyler Robinson, 23 minutes after the murder happened at 12:23 p.m. At 12:46 p.m., he does a Google route search on his phone. This was extracted. The Google route search is from this Mountain Shadow shopping center. So remember, this is 23 minutes after the murder. I think it's about 5-10 minutes away from UVU. So it took him a few minutes to get to his car. I think it took him a few minutes to ditch the weapon, change, get to a few more minutes to get to his car, a few more minutes to get to the shopping center, and then he was there for a few minutes before he did a search. He did that search from there to the Quick Quack car wash, which I cannot say three times fast. Yeah, the etchings were also. It wasn't like people are like, "Oh, they do that for hunting." First off, I don't know who would etch a bullet for hunting. That seems kind of okay, whatever. But do you put catch fascist on a bullet that you're gonna go hunting deer with? Okay, yeah. Again, that's theoretic. It's possible, but that's not the only evidence in the case. So I don't really think that saying other people have done things like that really counters the evidence as a whole. So he goes to the Quick Quack car wash, which again is about 10 minutes away from UVU, and I think similar amount of time away from Mountain Shadows. He's caught on surveillance there, him and his vehicle. Again, he does not live in the area. Who travels 3.5 hours and then goes to a car wash? I mean, again, yeah, if that was the only evidence, then I'm sure you could say, oh, well, it's possible. But yeah, we're talking about a totality of evidence here. So he's caught on surveillance there, which, by the way, this this is another point that it just goes to show that the Cellbrite extraction of this data, or the extraction of this data from Tyler's phone, it couldn't really be planted. How would who was planting it know that Tyler Robinson would go to the Quick Quack car wash? I mean, just like how would they know how he's choosing to surrender in order to forge those texts saying he's going to surrender through a sheriff friend? So, um, the level of hoops that you have to jump through to get to the conclusion that you just don't want Tyler to be found guilty. It's crazy. From the Quick Quack car wash, I think he goes back to the area of UVU campus. And that's at night is when he starts texting Lance. He texts at 11 p.m. And I'll read all the texts again just so we all hear it again. But that's when he's caught on the Nest cam, the Nest doorbell cam, which is close by where the rifle was dropped. And we see the footage of his vehicle. I don't think we see any Tyler Robinson stepping out of his vehicle. We certainly don't see any bald person, so that's another point that the conspirators keep bringing up is the owner of the Nest Cam mentioned a bald person left the vehicle, but who cares? We don't see it on the video. The person was mistaken. So then another Google search route from that location at 1:33 a.m. with the destination location being Tyler's apartment. And he leaves from the footage of the Nest Cam at 1:35. So he does the search, and within 2 minutes, he leaves. Dairy Queen. He spotted at Dairy Queen. I think this was in between the Quick Quack car wash and when he comes back to the area of UVU. It's a Dairy Queen in Orem. I don't know much about this. I've seen the photo of him in the Dairy Queen. I don't think that it adds too much to the case, other than that it puts him again in Orem, Utah. The defense is going to have to address this. Uh, they're not going to deny that he was in the area because he was in the area, and there's no evidence to say that he wasn't. So, anyways, he visits the Dairy Queen. He gets food there. I don't know exactly. I think it was at 6 p.m. on the 10th that he's at this Dairy Queen in Orem. Don't quote me on that. Finally, he goes back to his apartment he leaves at 1:35. Um, and I think there's a license plate reader that picks him up in Cedar City at 7:15. Now, it wouldn't have taken him that long to get there. So I have it on my PowerPoint. I'm gonna double check that. And then finally, after he spends the day of September 11th, basically confessing to Tyler and his parents, he surrenders at the Washington County Sheriff's Station, which is close to his apartment. By the way, his parents also live close to his apartment, so again, I haven't seen any explanation for why he was in Orem. Okay, so those are the relevant locations. Oh, eclectic journalist, how are you? I'm excited to do a joint stream with you. Okay. So on my again, check out my Substack. I'm gonna link it. It has this. I think it's a pretty good PDF. I also think I posted it on my X, or at least I posted a link to my Substack on my X. Okay. So let's get into the chronology a little bit better. Is the DQ thing in evidence now? No, it wasn't presented as evidence. At least, again, I didn't watch the whole preliminary hearing. That would have been too hard for me to watch because it was a long one and it was all day, every day. Um, but it wasn't a search warrant affidavit. I think they were trying to get more footage. It did come out, and I have a picture of it. Okay, 8:28. That's 8:28 a.m. on the 10th, the day of the murder. Tyler Robinson's Challenger, 2013 Dodge Challenger, enters the UVU parking structure on Campus Drive. They are able to identify that, according to Agent Hull's testimony, as belonging to Tyler Robinson. Okay. There's been no evidence presented by the defense that that car was stolen. Right? If you wake up one morning and your car's not there, usually you'd call the police and file a police report, right? So there's been no evidence of that. So Tyler's Challenger enters the UVU parking lot. Robinson, between 8:28 and 9:24, we have footage of him exiting the car and walking through the parking structure in a cap, in a red shirt, shorts, Converse. 9:24, he returns to his car. A few minutes later, at 9:32, he leaves the parking structure. Again, we see the vehicle license plate. When he leaves, so he leaves at 9:32. Just after 10 a.m., he returns on foot from the northeast. Same clothing, this time blue backpack. I don't think he had a backpack the first visit. That's when he goes to Chick-fil-A. I am certain that we're gonna see. I mean, I don't want to say certain, but I'm relatively certain we're gonna see more surveillance of him. He's going to Chick-fil-A, probably walking past many other surveillance videos, surveillance cameras. That time also. So the first time he was at the campus, I forgot to mention, he apparently spoke with at least one TPUSA member, somebody who was setting up for the event. That person may or may not testify as a witness. I don't know if they would even remember speaking with him, because this was before the murder. I'm sure they spoke to dozens of people. Nothing would have stuck out as significant about that at the time. But he comes back and he goes to the Chick-fil-A. I think also he's casing the place. That's when he goes to the wooded area that we see on footage. I'm pretty sure walking over to the obviously the wooded area is not caught on camera, but him walking toward that direction seems like he's doing recon. That happens at about 11 a.m. So let me take a look right now. I'm looking at some stills from the CCTV. And by the way, I would share it, but since this is on my phone right now, just look at it on my Substack. That would be. Let me put it on my Substack right now, or let me see if I can link it onto my Google right now, so that you guys can follow along with me. Let's see. Am I able to upload a yeah. Oops. Okay, let me put in my I'm gonna add it to the description. Sorry. I want you guys to follow along. Posts. What? What? I know I posted this. Hold on a second. Oh man, some of the stuff I probably should delete. Bear with me, everybody. I thought I posted this on my X too, so let me get the link from that. Oops, edit video. I don't want to edit video. Okay, 1 second. Okay, well, I just added the link to this PowerPoint on my Substack. You could also find it on my X. And right now I am looking at page 15 of 62. It looks like he was wearing the backpack the first trip also, the first visit. Okay. So 11:50 he comes back. This is the third visit. First captured north of Campus Drive, approaching the pedestrian tunnel. This is when he is wearing his long black sleeve shirt, I think the same hat, and jeans with a noticeable limp because you obviously see something hidden there. 11:53 he uses his phone. 12:02 you see him entering the Lucy Center. 12:15 you see him walking up the stairs near the toward the Lucy roof. 12:17 you see him, or at least somebody matching his description, climbing over a short wall and crouching on the roof. 12:22 is when he does the elite lateral crawl that anybody can do, but Candace is very impressed by that. He lies prone facing west toward the courtyard. 12:23 shot taken, suspect stands up, sprints north. 12:24 drops from the roof and runs north across Campus Drive. Running north across Campus Drive will take you to the wooded area where the gun, the towel, and the bullet shells are recovered. So, page 19 of this is the photo of him walking down the stairs now in with a limp, and you definitely see something down his pants all the way. I want to take a look at something else real quick. Page 20 of my thing is yeah, Nikki, that lateral crawl, that Candace's brain is so eaten with worms that she doesn't realize, like, it's not that impressive of a crawl. When you're looking for something, you stop using your common sense, and you forget that babies can crawl. Um, okay, so page 20 is just some more surveillance stills. Page 21 is surveillance still. 22 is just kind of a so we already kind of went through how 12:46 he does the Google search. 12:57 is when he arrives at the Quick Quack. 1:33 a.m. is when he does the search from the Nest Cam location back home. So 7:16 a.m. is Cedar City license plate reader. I'm gonna look that up. Around 8 p.m. is the Discord chats. Hold on, everybody. Letting my dog. Okay. and then the surrender. So, according to this photo, and I got this from a news source, Tyler Robinson is at Dairy Queen approximately 6 hours after taking Charlie Kirk out. Now, that is a clear photo. And again, check out the uh the link that I posted, which will take you to my this PowerPoint or this PDF file on my Substack, because it shows a clear photo of Tyler wearing a hat in that same shirt that he was wearing the first time, the maroon shirt at Dairy Queen, approximately 6 hours after taking out Charlie. So this would be about like 6:30 p.m. It also has, it looks like the same pair of sunglasses of the person you see in the photo. Let me see if there's anything here that it looks like the same hat, but you can't really tell because the sunglasses are blocking the logo. Definitely the same type of sunglasses. I mean, I don't want to say definitely because it's not it's not like it's from a surveillance footage still, so it's not the best photo, but it's a clear picture of the guy's face. And this is in Orem, Utah. I'm gonna write this down because I want to follow up on this. This is a point I want to bring up and be ready for it when I discuss the case with Josh or Eclectic. This page 29, if you're following along with me, is second. I'm trying to. It's interesting because it shows the ring camera footage. I'm sorry, the ring camera or the Nest camera location in relation to UVU. This is interesting. UVU campus is here, but where's the wooded thicket where they found it? Page 30 shows how far away he lived. So they both live in Utah. So people think, maybe he lived kind of close. No, it was UVU is at the northeast corner, basically, of Utah, and Tyler lived at the southwest corner. So he basically lived not just across the strait, but across the state, but completely diagonal. So, you know, just because it was both Utah doesn't mean that it was very close. And then let's have fun by reminding everybody what the text messages said. And again, these text messages were photographed from Lance's phone and extracted from Tyler's phone. I've not yet heard one good explanation for this. The closest thing is to say that it was all faked. But there's no evidence of that. Is it theoretically possible? Yeah, it's theoretically possible. But is it any is it also possible that it wasn't faked? These people. Hold on one second. $11. Tyler, drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard. Lance, what? You're joking, right? What do people think that he was referring to when he says, look under my keyboard? Other, if not for that note where he admits to it. Tyler, I tried to delete that. Fuck. Lance, yeah, what's going on? Tyler, I'm still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Whoever is framing Tyler must have been able to manipulate Tyler's brain to make him go to Orem that day. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. You want the one who did it, right? This is all. This is still 11:02, so this is back and forth. I am. I'm sorry. That's an admission. I thought they caught the person. No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I'd planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Why? I don't know. Why did I do it? Yeah. I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. So some people still tell me that they think that, oh, because he didn't use the words killed Charlie Kirk, that this is not a confession. What could he possibly be talking about? I had enough of his hatred. Some hate cannot be negotiated out. Well, oh God, thank a good Lord, thank the Lord that Muppet Masher, this Australian guy, is not an American and therefore cannot serve on a jury, because we do not want people like that to serve on a jury. He does not think. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. We'll update you by midnight. All right, stay safe. How long have you been planning this? A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. 3 hours ago, there was an officer with a canine walking by nearby the area, hoping that Pooch has a bad sniffer. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. Needless to say, I'm a be late coming home, my B. Again, if he didn't do it, where is his alibi? Where was he? How are all these text messages perfectly in line with what he was doing? If they were being framed by somebody. I have too much common sense to survive. I know it, but yeah, he's a flat earther. I know. But these people, like, They think that they're being healthy skeptics. Like, skepticism is good. You don't want people to just accept a prosecution's theory without evidence. But when they start providing lots and lots of evidence, you got to be able to come around to it. It's not skepticism if you refuse to accept evidence. That's not skepticism. That's delusion. Just stay. I mean, it it does seem futile because the evidence is just so overwhelming that if it's not convincing anybody at this point, then Lance, just stay safe. Tyler, I will. I'm more worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. He's far scarier than any Fed, not gonna lie. You know, it's strange because as a defense lawyer, I feel like I used to think, like juries are kind of too quick to agree with the prosecution or most members of the public because they kind of just have a built-in assumption that the prosecution is, if somebody's in custody and a defendant, then they're probably guilty. Even though there's a presumption of innocence, that's what the jury is instructed. I always feel that the defense is kind of coming from a disadvantage. If your client's in custody, then most people in the public kind of presume that he's guilty or she. But in this case, it's the exact opposite. I mean, amongst so many people in the public, that the evidence is overwhelming that he did it, and so many people in the public just refuse to accept it. Tyler's lucky in that regard. He's lucky that he's got. I mean, I don't know, because in some ways, Candace might be hurting the defense, but I mean, to have all this evidence arrayed against you and still have people think that you're innocent. Guess I'm just sitting in my car watching reels for another hour. Hope this guy fucks off. Now, I'm not sure when he parked in front of the Nest Cam. I know when he left was 1:35, which lines up perfectly. Yeah, Travel Queen. There are some people that have some there are people that just are not following the evidence and so just don't know how substantial it is. And those are the people that can be convinced. You show them the evidence and then they're like, "Oh, wow, there's a lot of evidence." But there are some that are just hopeless and it's futile. Um Lance at 11:12, are you okay still? Tyler, yeah. Lance, what are you going to do? Tyler, I don't really know. Tyler, closest gas station is like 20 minutes away. I might go there. I don't know. Gonna see if the road closer to campus is open so I can drive past and check shit out. Getting worried. Hard to know for sure, but I'm not finding my rifle. Could be in the wrong spot. You see, that one is the one that I'm kind of curious about. Was he actually looking Hi everyone, can you hear me now? Can you hear it? Okay. Yeah. So I'll try and speak a little bit louder because my mic just ran out. So yeah, so what I said is yeah, dirt bike. Yeah, it is it is like arguing with the flat earthers, but there are some who are just ignorant and they just don't know. That's why I think that this is still productive. Um, but yeah, there are those that are like the flat earthers that it just doesn't matter what you say to them. Um, but I want to know what happened with the clothing. Maybe this was mentioned in one of the other search warrants that I missed, but I'm curious if they found his clothing, the change of clothes, what have you. It's possible he ditched it. That actually seems like it could be very possible he ditched it because he went to the shopping center and then the car wash and then Dairy Queen. So I'm sure that there were dumpsters on the way. But I'm gonna look into that. Let me write that one down. So Lance says, was your change of clothes there or was that also gone? Or did you bring those with you originally? Then he said, any way you could replace the gun or would he notice? Tyler, only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. So it sounds like he took his change of clothes with him when he ditched the rifle. He changed, he took those clothes. 4-digit serial, hopefully some dead guy who gave it to grandpa. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The fucking messages are mostly a big meme. This is a big one. This is actually really big. Because Lance said that Tyler was engraving bullets for a few weeks. I think he said a month. Which, you know, some conspirators were like, well, why was he engraving bullets for a month if the advertisements for Charlie Kirk's event was only for, I think, from August 27th, so about 2 weeks before. I think that Lance probably just got that wrong. Or maybe he was engraving bullets before he knew that Charlie Kirk was coming to Orem. Maybe he planned to go to another place and that it just presented the best opportunity. But I think it's also possible that Lance Twig just said about a month when it was like the 2 weeks. But here's my point. If he's being framed, how could the people that framed him make him do etchings of bullets that they're going to plant? How do you reconcile that? You could say Lance Twiggs is lying about the etchings and the Dremel. So Lance Twiggs would have to be a big part of this whole conspiracy. But we don't have any evidence of that again. So that text to me is very significant because it shows that, you know, referencing something that Tyler did beforehand. And it couldn't just be planted or forged by somebody that didn't know what Tyler was doing. I mean, it's just another point. All right, I'm gonna have to leave it. That really sucks. Do you need it for hunting? No, my dad wanted to use a higher caliber for the rifle hunt. Here's another thing. If this was forged or framed, you could ask Tyler's dad if that's based on anything that you told Tyler. You know, did you want to use a higher caliber for the rifle hunt? If so, that you said that to Tyler, then again, how would somebody that's framing Tyler know that? Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. Lance, geez. Tyler, on my way home, 3.5 hours. Drive safe. Delete this exchange from Tyler. If they're framing him, would they say delete this exchange? I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point. It's pointless to try and... Yeah. How could people that are setting him up know all the background information, know how he's surrendering himself, know all these other details that he texts that really, can be corroborated independently. Do we have a candy tart in the chat? I kind of want some more candy tarts to come watch this stuff. There's more texts. There's more texts. McGill, be careful what you ask for. Well, I think they'll make it more interesting to have some people that disagree. Those are the types of questions that will get you thrown out of their X space. No, usually they just ask me if I'm Jewish, and then I have to admit that I am, and then from then on, they just kind of ignore everything I also have to say. Yeah, Nine Toe. Yeah, they could say that, but how did they know that he was doing the etchings according to Lance? So, I mean, they would have to say that Lance is in on the whole conspiracy. Which, I'm sure they already are saying. But, again, it's just one more convoluted, unnecessary fact to add into it to escape the idea that maybe Tyler did this. Yeah, so they say Lance is in on it, and... But why couldn't Tyler also be in on it? Why are they so quick? They say, Tyler needs to be presumed innocent, and yet they're so quick to jump and say Lance is guilty. They don't presume him innocent. They only presume Tyler's innocent. Yeah, I know, Dirtbike. It's. I mean, when I make that point, though, they get really heated about it, and I don't know if it's a perfect circle, because I think there are a few conspirators that think Tyler Robinson is innocent and they wouldn't say that they hate Jews, but they are. But that one lady, Quintessential, who I thought was very reasonable when she was hosting on her X space, talking about the Tyler Robinson case, talking about the conspiracies. She seemed very reasonable and nice, and so I befriended her. And then the next day, I saw her posting stuff about Israel being behind 9/11, and so I'm like, okay, so you're just another one of those people. then the next texts are really talking about the surrendering and stuff. I'm not going to read all the text. There's like another 5 to 10 texts, but the other question is the surrendering, because the same text messages that are coming from Tyler's phone that we extracted and that we photographed from Lance, he also talks about how he's choosing to surrender. And whoever is framing, if somebody was framing Tyler, how would they know that Tyler is choosing to surrender that way? Again, in the abstract, everything is theoretically possible, but there's just no evidence for it. And this one I found was really interesting, because this is going to come up at trial. This text from Tyler. Coworker sent me the still of me on campus. We didn't see that yet. We didn't see that text message from the coworker to Tyler, where he's saying that it's me on campus. That is really interesting. That would be another corroboration who this coworker is. I want to know. I'm gonna write that one down, because that's an interesting one. Yeah, there's a search warrant affidavit for the cell phone, all the cell phone location data from Google. And if you visit the thing that I posted the link to, this guy is done. He's done. This guy is done. At trial, he's done. They didn't present everything at the prelim. They presented more than I've ever seen, but they didn't present everything. If they were to present everything at the prelim, then I don't know what these conspiracy people are going to be embarrassed at trial. I really wish that the trial we really wish the trial was coming up soon, because I want these people to look really stupid. But we have to wait like a whole year for it. But here, Tyler texts, my dad wants photos of the rifle. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. That's going to be corroborated with the dad's cell phone record, or the dad's phone records. Because it's just going to be like another data point, and then he says, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. It's about 7:42 p.m. How did the people, again, I keep saying it, but these text messages were sent by Tyler. I'm sorry, they were. And so, trying to keep countering, if he was being framed by somebody, how would they know all these details? I think I made the point, they wouldn't. Yeah, you guys, I'm curious to hear about this Nate Valhalla. What's going on with him? I'm probably going to be heading out too in a few minutes. But thank you guys for everyone watching. But check out my link on the description, which it should be saved. We have the Discord chats that we didn't get to. But I've been through these a lot. I really keep hashing it over. I want everyone, including myself, to just know everything that there is. Thank you everybody.